The word Astra in Sanatana Dharma means projectile. Now, how is this projectile derived? How projectile is used? And what is the objective of this science? To understand this, we understand or we use this word Astra Vidya. All projectile in Sanatana Dharma, the Astra Vidya was based on this consciousness of the warrior or the consciousness of the existence. And all Astra Vidya was the priority, or all Sanatana Maharshies used to have the Astra Vidya, which they used to in turn teach it into for the benefit of mankind to the warriors. And the warriors used to use it in a different way to achieve their own means and objectives. But how this Astra Vidya was developed is from consciousness of human existence. This human engine, which has consciousness, mind and body as a fundamental, the body becomes the hardware, the consciousness and the mind becomes the software. Consciousness acts as the force and the mind acts as the action, the activity. Now, this consciousness, when contained in its own self, when a human engine or the consciousness is happy in its own self, when a being is happy in his own self, by his own self, as his own self, just his own existence, there is Satchitananda. That is the reason why consciousness can be defined as Satchitananda. In this, the Sat, there is existence, there is intelligence, and there is bliss. By the intelligence or the awareness of your own existence, you are blissful. It's called Satchitananda. When the consciousness is in this state of Satchitananda, it's like any planet or it's like any perfectly rotating object. It rotates in its own axis. The Satchitananda is in its own axis. In its own axis, it rotates and it produces its own bliss as existence. Generally, a deviated or a distracted consciousness produces something called mind, and which is in constant communion with the existential forces. And that is the reason why my consciousness is always influenced by other consciousness, is what people feel. There is an existence, and that existence has only two fundamental basic qualities to it. First is influence and the second is effect. If there is existence, there is influence and there is effect. So this influence, when two objects exist, the other object is always influenced. Each object influences the other object. And when these two objects come under the influence of the other objects, they have a distraction in their own existence and the Sat Chit Ananda Sthiti is lost. But when there is a Sat Chit Ananda, the human consciousness rotates along its own axis, along its own center, along its own vertices of human life called the Chakras. And everything is so perfectly aligned and balanced that there is an existence of Sat Chit Ananda alone. From that, when anything rotates along its own axis in its own self as its own self, and it's in a perfect balanced state of harmony and rotating in its own self, every rotating object has its own specific torque. This torque is the essence that makes the further rotation happen. So when the consciousness in its own state of pure existence has rotation in its own axis, and this rotation in its own axis has its own existence of pure torque. And when you know how to harness this pure existential torque of consciousness, that's the raw power to create, to destroy, and to maintain the existence. And when this raw power called torque of the existential consciousness is harnessed, it can be sublimated on any object, and when used upon, the object gives you the result. But in the modern day science of healing, of Adhyatmika San Advaita Sri Vidya, there was also the mother of all ancient warfare was actually the Sanatana Maharshies. So Maharshies, who were actually a peace-oriented, love-embodied beings, they created warfare to further create, because they knew the secret. To establish complete peace, you need to use the other factors. But how did they come to know? When they understood the Satchitananda of their own state, they understood how to correct the deviations in their own consciousness, and by the pure existential torque of their own existence. This further led into sublimation. So the Astra Vidya that Siddha Sanmarga teaches is, when a sadhak or a guru, when he goes into a state of perfect Satchitananda avastha, his own existence, the consciousness in its own axis, when spins in its own self as Satchitananda, there is pure existential torque. That is harnessed, and that I give it to the sadhaks. And that is the reason why this existential torque, when the sadhak receives, they have that mass in their hand. When they invoke the Brahmastra or the other astras that Siddha Sanmarga teaches, when you feel the weight in your hand, you feel it. So this, because the existential torque is the concentrated cosmic conscious energy or existence that is out of your own consciousness. Your own consciousness produces energy. Energy is never bad, positive or negative, bad or good. Energy is energy. And that cosmic energy itself is the mother of all existence as the secondary existence. The primary existence is your consciousness. And this, when a state of equilibrium, when you harness it and take it, you have that mass, energy, high vibrating energy. Now this mass or this conscious torque, when it is taken into the Omkara Dhanushakta Rupinyai Namaha, is what the Mother Tripramba is called. So the mother uses the bow called Omkara. Now where is this bow called Omkara? In our Ajna Chakra. The Bijakshara for Ajna Chakra is Omkara. So when a sadhak knows how to project his own existential conscious torque through his own Omkara Dhanush, the Ajna Chakra, into his specific guided goal, his consciousness runs to the specific guided goal, and the consciousness knows how to attract it. So the Astra Vidya in the Sanatana Dharma is not designed for warfare. It was actually designed to how to direct your own consciousness, because Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Chiti Rupena Samstita. Namastasye, 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 Namo Namah. So how to direct this Chiti? Through the Omkara Dhanush. The existential torque of consciousness has to be directed through the bow of your Ajna Chakra, Omkara, into your desired state of existence. And when that happens, the way you want your life, you can design it. That is how you become the master of your own destiny. You should know how to make your existential torque of the consciousness run in the direction that you want. That's the secret.